That's a very important day between India and China as the first high-level meeting between Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, the General Officer commanding of the Leh-based 14 Corps, and his Chinese counterpart, who heads the People's Liberation Army, since the May 5th scuffle between soldiers near Pangong Lake will take place. The talks will be held in Chushul today. This is seen as the first major attempt to resolve the month-long bitter border standoff in Eastern Ladakh. The Indian delegation will be led by Lieutenant General Harinder Singh, who is the General Officer commanding of the Leh-based 14 Corps, and the Chinese side will be headed by the commander of the Tibet Military District. All right, let's first go across to our reporters who are joining us. Nikunj Garg is with us, Senior Editor, Security. Pradeep Datta is with us as well, Senior Editor. I'll come to you first, Nikunj. What can we realistically expect from today's meeting? Will this just be the first in a long series of meetings between the Indian and the Chinese armies, or can we expect some kind of a breakthrough today?
Well, Madhav, even if a breakthrough is coming, it will obviously not be announced or cannot be announced today. The fact is that both the Corps commander on our side and the Chinese military commander will have to go back to their respective political masters, respective political stations, debrief, take the final. A decision cannot be taken at the military level because of the that has become so entangled now that it really have a political diplomat in it completely dissent. The fact of the matter is also...
Nikunj, I'm sorry, there's some technical problem with that line. We will try and rectify the bandwidth issues that appear to be taking place. Let me quickly get in a word from Pradeep Datta as well. Pradeep, over to you. What are the expectations really from today's meeting?
See, India is quite optimistic because India very well understands that China has been isolated because of the scenario after COVID-19. And there is already a domestic pressure also, and China will not allow their growth to be hampered. So they will also be looking for some kind of a way out, and it is with this intention India is already there. So India, if you look at the situation, how they had been dealing with it, they had been dealing it with strength as well as showing some kind of a restraint. When I talk about restraint, that means they never wanted the situation to flare up. And when they talk about the strength, they never ever allowed any kind of belligerence, bellicosity and brinkmanship of the China will not be tolerated. And in this regard, they have already made it clear that they will not allow China to profit, neither they are going to blink. When we say that they are not going to blink, that means India is neither going to compromise on the territorial integrity and nor going to give any kind of concession to China so far as this standoff is concerned. Now it is to be seen whether India will go for any kind of a face saver or whether they will try to really end face off. Because so far as the attitude of the country on the LSC has been seen, because there had been a mirror mobilization of the troops where they had been trying to match with the build-up on the Chinese side. So the message was clear to China. And this time they will not allow them to browbeat India. So they are going to match them in each aspect. So it is with this intention today the meeting is going to start. And meeting, they will ask for one, they will ask for status quo. Second, they want that there should be no aggressive position from the Chinese side, as has been agreed between the two militaries after the Wuhan, because that was the time when two armies had agreed with certain guidelines. They will want both the armies to adhere to those guidelines. And third thing is that they want that there should be no, in fact, pressure from the Chinese side to stop infrastructure build-up. Because what is the reason? When India started constructing road in Daulat Beg Oldi, and then when they started having bridge, and that was the time when China got perturbed and they wanted to stop that. Because China always felt that India will be keeping an eye on the Lhasa-Kashgar highway in Aksai Chin, and they felt threatened. But India will try to tell China that all this infrastructure build-up is for the people of the region. This is not to threaten China or because India is not having any kind of expansionist strategy like that of China, because in China had always been looking for cartographic expansion through military muscle, something which India has never ever been looking at. India always believed in status quo, and here also in this particular case they want that status quo to exist at any case, but they will not compromise or give any concession because India has shown a political.
With us are Maruf Raza, RSN Singh and Major GD Bakshi. Maruf, I'd like to come to you first. The question is this, that what exactly will India be telling China today? Of course, there are tents that have been pitched. There has been a lot of talk of Chinese intrusion. What really are the specifics that India is likely to seek from China today?
You see, I think the Indian negotiating position will be based on go back to perceived lines along the LAC. Now, the three areas in which the Chinese have made intrusions as has been reported again and again in the press. One is at finger 8, which is near finger 4. Now, what are these fingers? For understanding, these are really mountain spurs or ridgelines. And we have traditionally had our positions on finger 4, and we were patrolling till finger 8. And in finger 8, China has suddenly come and occupied those areas and put up tents and has started doing a build-up. The second build-up has been, and this is north of Pangong, so means lake. Now, the other major area of our concern is near the Galwan Valley, which traditionally has been with us even through the 1962 conflict. Just next to that is the major highway, as Pradeep was bringing out, which is being built between Daulat Beg Oldie, which is an airfield which we have activated several years ago. And there are C-17s and Sukhois also sometimes that land there. And this makes China nervous. And coming down towards the Dabruk side and beyond. Now, the point is that we need to tell them that it is not a situation where whatever is lying unpatrolled or unoccupied, you can just come in and occupy. China has this strategy, and for me, it's really the old record that is playing out all over again. China intrudes, we put force levels out there, then our side starts saying that, we want peaceful de-escalation. I personally believe China does not appreciate your passive, peaceful activities. This is what led them to the occupation of Aksai Chin in the 50s, and all of Panditji's chest thumping that we've asked now the army to throw them out. Even now there is confusion, as far as I'm concerned, about which part of our forces is holding what. Right. ITBP is meant to hold parts along the Pangong area lake, and the army holds positions beyond that towards Galwan Valley. Now, suddenly, all the responsibility has been shifted to the army, that you guys sort it out. This is a very classical pattern of how India deals with crisis. Right. First, the politicians will make announcements, then the Home Ministry and the paramilitary will try and do something, and when they feel they're out of their depth, they call the army in.
Absolutely,
now, the
absolutely.
Army is then given, let me complete please. The army is given a hopeless situation to sort out. Now what will happen is China is looking for massive depth for the highway that they have built across Aksai Chin, which connects Kashgar to Lhasa. Okay. This highway was made in the 50s, and China is always intruding into areas. If you go by one account, if I can quote General Panag's view, former Northern Army commander, China has taken something like 30-40 kilometers collectively in that area. Another account says 3 to 4 kilometers. Either way, they have intruded into areas which were traditionally ours. Yes. Now the problem is like a Kargil-like situation. Are you going to try and talk them out of it, or are you going to use force to evict them?
Well, that's really the question. That's really the question, Maruf Raza. And the larger question is that are we looking at a Doklam kind of a situation, Major General G.D. Bakshi, where we see a long sort of a standoff, a huge troop build-up and gradual de-escalation over a period of several months? Is that what is likely to happen?
Look, there are certain qualitative differences that have happened this year. This is not just a one-off standard, annual feature in which we move up to our line of perception, they move up to their line of perception, and some scuffles and standoffs take place. Let me enumerate the differences. This seems to have been done at the theatre command level with a nod from Beijing. Absolutely. Number one, it's not at one single point. It's at 4 separate points on the border, on the LSE and in the North Sikkim, Nakula area, right? This time, especially in the Galwan theatre, there was one of the Chinese brigades which was doing exercises, opposite. We also do exercises at this time of the year, but then they suddenly, in civilian trucks, which were carrying the building material for some of the airstrips they are constructing, they achieved surprise and deception, and they have moved that brigade down to Galwan, Now, this is the Galwan Shock River Junction. This Galwan Shock River Junction is just 5 kilometers from the LAC. The Darbuk Shock Daulat Beg Oldi Road passes along the left bank of the Shock River. The Chinese came and occupied the heights across. This is something like a Kargil redux. They are trying to threaten with this build-up the very vital 255-kilometer artery that we are in the process of completing from Darbuk to the Daulat Beg Oldi. This is unacceptable, no question. We didn't accept it in Kargil. Why the hell should we accept it now? And there is no ambiguity in the line of control in this area. There is no ambiguity. Please, this is almost virtually amounts to an intrusion. So our red line should be quite clear. Sorry, you go back to status quo ante. We haven't built this road just so that the Chinese can sit astride and stop our movement on this.
Absolutely.
That will not be accepted.
Absolutely.
Not be accepted.
Absolutely. In fact, let me take that question across to Colonel Harinder Singh. The larger question is this. In fact, as Major G.D. Bakshi was enumerating over there, the kind of qualitative differences in terms of the number of intrusions, the kind of intrusions, the depth of the intrusions, and also the fact that we're seeing this happen all in consonance at a time when even Nepal has come out and, claimed a piece of land which many believe could be at the behest or at the direction of China. The larger question is that is this a sort of response coming in from China in the form of aggression, in the form of the global backlash that it is facing?
No, you are absolutely right. I mean, one of the Chinese newspapers today it says that India should desist from becoming an junior ally of United States. So things are very clear. It is very different. I'm getting echo in my ears.
We'll just try to rectify that, sir. I apologize. We will just try and rectify that. I will just tell my technical team of producers to try and ensure that you do not get that echo. But if you could meanwhile continue, sir.
It's okay now. Yeah, it's okay now. So what I was saying is that this time, let me put it this way. The line of actual control has actually been a leverage with the Chinese. They will never resolve it. I remember, see how they have leveraged it. In 1986, my battalion was in Darbuk. We had a company in Chushul, I remember, and I went with my wife and stayed for a day. So those days, I mean, that was the period of peaceful rise of China, as enunciated by Deng Xiaoping. And now see, I mean, how things have, they keep fluctuating. But this fluctuation is an abnormal fluctuation because it happens in the backdrop of the pandemic. It happens in the backdrop of, in the happenings in South China Sea. It happens in the backdrop of your abrogation of Article 370. By the way, the Chinese took it up in the UN Security Council. It happens in the backdrop of that we started consolidating the far-flung areas by declaring Ladakh a union territory. It happens in the backdrop of the fact that we have asserted our claim all the more, more vehemently after abrogation of Article 370 as far as Article 370 Gilgit-Baltistan is concerned. It happens in the backdrop of the fact that in our maps now we share 106-kilometer border with Afghanistan. It happens in the backdrop when the Chinese are now worried about the China-Pakistan economic corridor.
Right.
It happens in the backdrop of that they are worried about China-Nepal economic corridor. So now I have put the perspective on you. My simple suggestion is that we shall not compromise. It is the Chinese who have to go back. And if I was a member of the negotiating team, there is nothing to negotiate.
All right.
There is nothing to, and this Galwan area, Galwan and Shok, confluence, they have come because it is a water-rich area, by the way.
All right.
Aksai Chin is a dry area. It is a part of Tarim Basin. So we shall not give any concessions. These fellows have to go back.
Okay. Karl Larsen Singh, Maruf Raza, Jadjit Bakshi, as well as Pradeep Datta, request you all to stay on with us. We're going to continue with our coverage on the other side. It's a very short break. But before we slip into the break, Times Evoke is a unique print and digital initiative which inspires a new awareness, one that creates a joyful harmony with nature and all its forms. To celebrate the bond that humanity shares with nature, Times Evoke is bringing together 25 leading artists for India's biggest concert for the environment live, with Grammy winner Ricky Kej, Saturday the 13th of June at 8 p.m. For information, log on to www.timesevokeconcert.com. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the talks between India and China at Chushul that are expected as far as the LAC standoff is concerned. Our experts and reporters continue to be with us. Maruf, I'll come to you with a simple question. Now, Chinese come and say that the situation on the border with India is quote-unquote stable and controllable. Can they be taken at face value, sir?
You know, that is Chinese double-speak for negotiations. You see, China always uses words like peaceful rise, stable, etc., to convey to the world that it is not the aggressor. But those who know a bit about China, and our other experts on the show have also done a fair amount of work on China, and so have I more recently. You know, let me sort of bring out 2 or 3 examples on how we could have dealt with this. I personally feel, and I'd like to be corrected, that I think we've been surprised once again by Chinese intrusions. There were intrusions of this nature that took place in 1987 in Sundarongchu, and without the military commanders waiting for Delhi to get its political act together, they took necessary military action. General Sundarji was the chief then. He flew in 2 brigades from Arunachal. He surrounded the Chinese intrusions in the Nifa Arunachal side called Sundarongchu, and gave China sort of fait accompli, that China either withdraws or we put the pressure harder on them. In this case, we've been cautious by too many halves. The second aspect is, what is it that China eventually wants? Colonel RSN alluded to that. China essentially wants more water wherever it can lay its hand in the entire erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, which then became Jammu and Kashmir with us, and today is now Jammu and Kashmir, UT and Ladakh.
Yes.
Because the waters that they aspire for fills their larger strategic agenda.
Absolutely. There's a lot more. There's a lot more at play over here than actually comes to the eye. Maruf Raza, I'm sorry for interrupting, but we have to slip into a quick break. We'll continue with the discussion in just a few moments. Welcome back to our continuing coverage. This is the build-up and anticipation as far as the India-China talks are concerned. The 2 armies will be sitting down at the negotiating table today to discuss the standoff at the LAC. Let me quickly get in a word from Pradeep Datta. Pradeep, you were also detailing for us the kind of efforts that India has made at infrastructure building on the Indian side. However, you know, we have seen the Chinese really ramp up infrastructure on their side. Whenever India attempts to do so, we see a hypocritical China come out and object, and that too will be very, very crucial in terms of the talks that take place between the 2 armies today.
See, if we talk of China, the 3 words that comes into my mind is deceit, duplicity and denial. And when they in fact say that the situation is really normal, as in fact Maruf Raza was rightly saying, that is only duplicity to tell the world that they are not aggressive. So far as infrastructure buildup is concerned, in fact we had been covering this area for long. When earlier we started covering this area, we used to find that there used to be a kacha track, because now there is a complete paradigm shift in the military strategy. Because whenever we used to ask the army officers there that why there is a kacha track for our soldiers, while as we can see the metal road on the other side, they used to say that our strategy is that we do not want our roads to be used by aggressor in case of any hostility or in case of war. But now there is a complete paradigm shift. We have also started constructing road. Already 61 of the road projects have been completed out of the 75, and we are continuing with our construction, and that is one of the reasons that China is completely perturbed and irked, and they want that construction process to be stopped. There is a paradigm shift vis-a-vis line of control with Pakistan. We saw that there had been a surgical strike, and there is a paradigm shift so far as infrastructure build-up in eastern sector of Ladakh is also concerned, because earlier it was only China that could mobilize troops. But now we have also got the roadways, because of which we can also have access in many of those areas, and we can also mobilize our troops within no time, which China is not liking, because they feel that many of their roadway projects, whether it is CPEC, whether it's Lhasa-Kashgar road, that they feel threatened, and they feel that Indians will be able to keep an eye on that. At any given point of time, India can even cut off that roadway. That will be leading to lot many problems for China. So that's why China is in fact trying to prevent India from going ahead with the infrastructure build-up. That is the main point, in fact, India is today going to bring during this meeting, where they are going to discuss this with China. They are going to tell China, see, this is the road which is in fact going to help our people on our side, because the people of Ladakh area had been demanding this road for long, because they were facing lot many problems. So they wanted this road infrastructure. So how come the China can really stop? When there was a Kargil war, in fact, that was the time when China started constructing roads along the Pangong Lake also. So that road, in fact, helped them to construct many more roadways. See how China is been, in fact, using certain things for their benefit, and always been trying to, in fact, befool the world community with their stance that there is everything stable. Nothing is stable so far on the ground, because they had been an aggressor. They were trying to nibble Indian land, and they had been continuing with this strategy for long. Because when we initially started covering transgression, we found that they used to come over to Indian side. They used to leave telltale signs. Sometimes they used to write something on the rock in Cantonese language, leave cigarette butts, and so that tomorrow, if the Indians will be coming on talking table, they can stake claim over that area, saying that, see, we have got written already this on this rock. We had been walking up, patrolling up to this place. So this is our land. This used to be strategy. But yes, after Doklam, we have seen the change in Chinese strategy also. There has been a mobilization of troops. But so far as India is concerned, India has also responded, because India right now believes that you need not have a pacifist mindset, what previous governments used to have, because they were not able to come out of 1962 defeatist syndrome. They want to have a robust mindset. With pacifist mindset, you are going to lose war even before it begins. So that is what India realizes, and it is with this robust mindset today they will be sitting on a talking table, where they will not be, in fact, taking dictation from China, but they will be presenting their point of view and trying to tell China that neither we are going to give you any more concession, nor we are going to compromise on certain issues, because it is really going to be for their benefit, and they can't lose so far as the territory is concerned. So they can't allow China to encroach upon that land, what they had been doing since 70s.
All right. In fact, stay with us, Pradeep. Let me also quickly go across to Colonel Harinder Singh. Colonel Harinder Singh, one of the points that was made by Maruf, and you also referred to it earlier, sir, is the entire aspect of water, and how much of a role that plays strategically as far as China is concerned in this entire region as well.
No, of course, water has always been a big factor. After all, Aksai Chin, I told you, is a totally dry area. And this Shok belt, I mean, the lot of water is there. That is one of course one of the strategic reasons. But the fact of the matter is, I must tell Maruf sir that, look, sir, in 1986, I can tell you one thing, that we after 62, India was very, very serious.
All right, I'm requesting you to stay on with us, sir. We have some breaking news coming in at this point of time. All right, in fact, minutes ahead of the key talks, the Chinese government mouthpiece has struck. It has cautioned the Modi Sarkar in an editorial. Don't let the media instigate you. That's really, of course, the statement coming in from the Chinese mouthpiece. Let's go across to Srinjoy, who's joining us for more on that. China once again engaging in some mind games here ahead of those very key talks. Srinjoy.
Yeah, the most important thing you can hear, Madhav, from the Global Times is actually the elephant in the room here. That is America. China believes that America is interfering with the relation between India and China. This, of course, is an entirely Chinese perspective, that that America is trying to interfere in the Asia-Pacific and the Indo-Pacific, and by doing this, China realizes that America is creating instability. And there is a veiled warning here that America is trying to make friends with India and make India believe that when India needs America, America will be there. But here, China is warning India that, look here, if you believe that America will help you when you need America, America may not be there. That is the underlying message of what Global Times is saying. It's a way of the Chinese Communist Party telling the world what it thinks. It's the way the Chinese government is telling the world what it thinks. That America is really the spoiler here. America should not play an important role here, and India should not go ahead and make friends with America. This is because of two recent developments. One, of course, that America has invited India to be part of G7, and very pointedly along with Russia, South Korea, and Australia. And the other point, of course, is the firming up of the Quad, which is India, Japan, America, and Australia. And of course, let's not forget that just the other day, the Australian Prime Minister and Prime Minister Modi held a meeting, virtual meeting, if that. So the important point here is that China does not want America to interfere. India, of course, has made a very clear point that yes, America is our friend, but as far as China-India relations are concerned, this is something India is handling on its own.
Well, absolutely, Srinjoy. And just look at the kind of language that is coming in from this particular statement, where it says that India has gradually formed an illusion of strategic superiority towards China. It's calling it an illusion, and says that some in India feel China may make concessions on border issue, believing China is afraid of falling foul of India, and India can win more interest by nibbling up the border. Such a mindset is rising in India and has seemingly put pressure on Indian policy makers. So clearly, of course, China on multiple levels, you know, the kind of position that it has, or the thought process that it has, is completely exposed here.
You see, the Chinese judge the Indian media by its own standards. Now, the Chinese media only believes in stuff that is given directly by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government. In the Indian case, the media is independent and wholly independent and free. So a lot of people in the media have different points of view. Now, one media house may have one view. A paper, a channel may have a different view. Now, this is something that Chinese cannot understand. They believe that all the information that India puts out has been fed by the Indian government and the Indian establishment. But that's not really true. That's something that Chinese do not understand. And that is where a problem lies. Even here in this article, there is talk about a belligerent section of the Indian media. Once again, the Chinese believe that it's the Indian establishment, the Indian government, that has fed the media this. They don't realize that the Indian media can have its independent view and perspective.
All right. In fact, let me take this across to our guests also who are joining us. Major General G.D. Bakshi, you know, in this same article going on to say that China will not give up an inch of territory once India makes a strategic misjudgment and nibbles away at China's territory. China will never condone it. It is bound to make strong countermeasures. We believe India knows very well that China will not be at a disadvantage in any China-India military operations along the border area. So you have not just the fact that they are sort of, creating these sort of lies and spreading them, but also the fact that what the true intentions of China are, it's not left to anybody's imagination.
Absolutely. Let me try and, it's very important to try and second guess what is the hierarchy of Chinese motivations to be doing what they are doing. At the geostrategic level, what they are trying to tell you is that in the new Cold War 2.0, don't align yourself with the Americans. Stay non-aligned as you were in the first Cold War. That is one of the pressure points they are trying to put against you. And this editorial in the Global Times is of a piece. The second aspect, they are also quite worried that about 1,000 industries of the foreign industries are moving shop out of China. And they are likely to go to India, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. So they are trying to warn you that don't, mess around with us. Number two, at the regional level, at the theater command level, what they are trying to tell you is don't deter you from trying to change the status quo in Jammu and Kashmir as it pertains to Gilgit-Baltistan, through which their China-Pakistan economic corridor passes, as also in Aksai Chin, through which their National Highway 219 that links Xinjiang with Tibet passes, and to which they attach a hell of a lot of importance. So they are trying to tell you, don't mess with us, don't change the status quo. As we have quite obviously stated the honest fact that these belong to us, these are our areas, for God's sake. And for somebody to expect that we won't even have the nerve to say that's our sovereign territory. You are the guys who are sitting there, in doing an intrusion. The third is the aspect of, trying to carry out, trying to blosser up Pakistan. You see, after Balakot, Pakistan had taken a hard knock. It was totally cowed down. You would recall that in August last year, Pakistan did nothing when we abrogated Article 370. It was so cowed down. Suddenly this year, from January onward, once COVID pandemic has started, two countries in the world have become very aggressive. One is China, the second is Pakistan. Right? And Pakistan has done about 1,300 ceasefire violations.
Okay.
It is, pushing troops, pushing terrorists across, creating mayhem in Handwara, in Pulwama. It just attempted Pulwama too.
All right.
Why is it doing it? Because of Chinese instigation.
Vijay G. Bakshi, I have to interrupt you there, sir. We are going to slip into a quick break, but we'll continue with this continuing coverage on the other side.